Ladies, listen up, listen up. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Maybe you're feeling full of anxiety. Are you the caregiver? Are you the one who's always taking care of everybody else, but you forget to take care of yourself? Is that you? Well, you definitely want to pay attention to this interview today. I'm going to be bringing up one of our authors in one of our books. We're going to be talking about anxiety, overwhelm, how to overcome it, how to move to the other side of that so that you can live a more stress-free life. I say more stress-free because we can't guarantee that you will have a stress-free life because there are stresses in life, right? But stay tuned. We're going to be right back. We're going to be talking about overwhelm, anxiety, and how you can flow into the next level of your life. Hi, all. My name is Linda Sunshine West. I'm the founder and CEO at Action Takers Publishing. Our mission is to empower 5 million women and men to share their stories with the world to make a greater impact on the planet. I have with us today one of our authors in one of our books. Before we go into the topic of anxiety and overwhelm, I want to invite you to follow us. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Just go to Action Takers Publishing on all those platforms and follow us over there. We do bring to you a lot of different people who have different insights into, different aspects of life. It really runs the gamut. Today we have with us Lesley Evans of Rise of the Phoenix. And Lesley, I'd like for you to, before we really get into the topic of anxiety and overwhelm, just share a little bit about you, about who you are and how you help people.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda. Thank you for inviting me and having me here. It has been such a pleasure working with you on the book and all of the things since then. So I am Lesley Evans. I am CEO and founder of Rise of the Phoenix, and I like to call myself a midlife women transformation mentor. So what does that mean? Well, midlife has so many transitions. There's so much going on, so many things that we're figuring out about ourselves in midlife, and there's so many decisions to be made. And really, it can really cause a lot of overwhelm and anxiety in that spot. But here's the thing. I like to look at midlife not just as a transition, but a transformation. And we can make it that because I don't know, I've had so many people think, oh, this is kind of the end, when it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning of figuring out who you are without all those other things that you've taken care of. Just like you said, those caretakers, those healers, those women out there that take care of everything. And those roles are changing in midlife. And so it's about figuring out who you are. And sometimes that can really cause a lot of overwhelm and stress. So here I am. I work both individually and in groups with women who are ready to take those next steps, let go of some of that stress and overwhelm, and to transform into their next best self, kind of like the phoenix, rising from those ashes, right? In being stronger and lighting their light.
Well, I find interesting is, well, first of all, thanks for doing the work you do. Cause I'm going to say I'm in midlife right now. I'm going to be 62 soon. And I'll say right now I'm in midlife, so that's kind of what the question I have for you is like, what is midlife? What does that really mean? Because it's not really an age. My perspective is that it's not really an age, because you can't say, oh, at age 40, you were midlife. Does this mean you're in the middle of your life and you're halfway to death? Does this mean that there's something going on inside of your life? We've heard, with men, they talk about the midlife crisis. Do women have midlife crises too? So I'd love to really dive into just like that one aspect of it first before we really, talk about this overwhelm, anxiety, and things that we can do in order to get through those. So what, in your definition, is midlife?
Oh, what an interesting and a great question, Linda. If we're, I like to, if we're looking at it at that age thing, you're right. I don't like to put an age on it. I'll say it's 40-ish and over, because things can start happening before you're 40 and things can start happening after you're 60. That it's that time of real change where your roles begin to change and you start looking at yourself and thinking, hmm, I'm not really sure that this is where I wanted my life to go. And looking at that, I don't think I'm satisfied. I got everything I wanted to. This is what I said I wanted. But it's not really making me happy. And so that midlife is that part where we're starting to realize we're more than our roles. We're more than a mother. We're more than a wife. We're more than, a nurse or a healer or a friend. Like we're more than that, and that we're ready to really see who we are. And that can happen at any point in life for sure. It most often happens in those 40s, 50s, 60s, but it happens at any time in life.
Well, that's interesting because the phrase, midlife crisis, it's not that at all. It's like a midlife awareness, right? A midlife. So, like, a lot of times we equate it again, the midlife crisis for men. They say, that's when they go off and buy a Lamborghini, or that's when they, get a divorce, or they buy a fancy whatever. They go on a long vacation. There's so many things that we say, oh, they must be having a midlife crisis. What if the reality is not that they're having a crisis at all, but they're having a realization that they have not been living the life they're truly meant to live? And maybe that's all it is. I don't know. I just, that came to mind when you were speaking about that. Um, so what would you say would be an indication for somebody to know that they're in midlife? Maybe they've already been there for 10 years, but they didn't have that realization that they were there. Like, how
Right.
be able to explain that?
I think for the most things that I see in the women that I work with is this realization that they're not truly happy, that they like they have happiness in their lives, but they're not truly fulfilled. They're not satisfied with where they're at. They spent so much time, whether if they've had kids, they're caretaking for their kids, trying to, um, keep a marriage alive for the kids, or spending their time in their role as whatever they work as. Again, I work with a lot of nurses, healthcare workers, healers, therapists who have just spent their life giving, and they've just figured out that it's not working anymore. They're not happy. They're just not satisfying, and it's time to make the change. And there's a lot of fear that goes in making those changes
Yeah.
because it's so unknown. And so, like you said, somebody might not know it for 10 years. They might know that they're not happy, but the fear of what might happen if they start speaking it out loud kind of keeps them in that denial of, maybe it is time for me to make some changes for myself.
Yeah, I think that's such an important distinction, is that, the happiness, you may be living a happy life, but you may not be fully fulfilled or happy. And I remember the exact day, Lesley, the exact day that I went through that realization that I hated my life. It's not that I wasn't happy. I hated it. Like, it was like the ultimate. And I was just seething from my mouth. These words that were coming out were just anger and hatred and so many things. Like, I was driving to work. I was working my 49th job after 36 years in the corporate world. And I was driving to work and I was just like, I hate my life. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And then what ended up happening is, when I got to work that day, there was a Facebook post inside of a group I belonged to. And it said, I'm a life coach. I took some time off. I'm getting back into it. I'm looking for 5 women who want to change their lives. And that was me. So I raised my hand and ended up working with her, like working with you, right? It'd be the same kind of thing. I worked with her and she helped me to unfold and realize the life that I should be living is the life that I want to live, but I wasn't doing it because, like you said, I was stuck in a Groundhog Day life. I was 51. I was 51. So was I having my midlife crisis, or was I having my midlife awakening? And that's really what I feel like was happening, is that, like, this person inside of me, I didn't even know who I was, and I was finally learning. after 51 years. And that stress and overwhelm, anxiety, those started to dissipate. They still show up every once in a while, but they started to dissipate. And I learned how to discover when I'm feeling overwhelmed, what do I need to do? Here's the tool
Right.
in order to move through that, because it's going to happen. But how do we deal with
Absolutely.
that? Yeah. So let's talk about that, because anxiety and overwhelm lead to stress. Stress leads to heart issues, cancers. It leads to so many different ailments that we have in our lives. So let's talk about first the recognition that you're experiencing overwhelm or anxiety. What does that look like?
Ooh, again, this can show up in so many ways. It can be those subtle things where, at the end of the day, when you go to bed at night, your mind is still rolling with all the things that you've had to do. As soon as you get up in the morning, your mind is rolling with all those things you need, all those lists that you have going on, all those things you need to take care of. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm anxious. Overwhelm can just be that constant chatter going on in your head that doesn't give you a break. And you don't give yourself a break. To
Right.
that anxiety that can happen where you get those physical symptoms of, it's called the survival mechanism, where you start to have the heart racing, that the feeling of, often you can almost feel like this coldness go over your whole head, because your body's getting ready to fight or flee. And so that anxiety can come in what would be called a little bit more of maybe an anxiety reaction or a panic attack, when your muscles you get the tightness in your chest, because your body really is just getting ready to fight or flee, because you feel like you're in life-threatening danger. So it can be the realm. But I would say the most ways it shows up, that overwhelm, is just that constant, always never slowing down. Your head is always going, you're always going, and you're never giving yourself a break. And just like you said, Linda, that leads to so many things, not only
Yeah.
mentally but physically too.
Yeah. And, when you mentioned that, I had this huge realization just in this moment that, nothing is keeping me up at night. I used to, like, my mind, it is hard for me to shut my mind down, but once it's shut down, it's gone. Like, it's shut down. And then I wake up in the morning refreshed with it's like a new lease on life, every single day. And this is something that was not part of my life before. Somebody sent me an email this morning, and it said, and the very end, she signed it off with, "What keeps you up at night?" And then her next question was, "Or what brings you joy?" It's like realizing that they don't go hand in hand together. So yeah,
Yeah.
what keeps you up at night? Those are the anxieties that you're experiencing, or the overwhelm that you may be experiencing. So how do you help people? Because I know you do a lot of different things with people with you mentioned hypnosis, doing how do you work with people to I don't know, can you rid people of overwhelm? I don't know. Talk to me. How do you help people move on, I guess?
Well, it's interesting because as we talked about, Linda, I work in a very holistic, a three-part way, where I have been a therapist for over 30 years. So that would be your standard talk therapist.
Right.
But in the last 15 years or so, I realized it wasn't enough for people just to have that talk therapy. And so I'm also a hypnotherapist, and also an Akashic guide. So I work from all three realms: that conscious, the subconscious, and your soul level, to really, help you with that profound and lasting deep healing. And it can be quick, when we're going into subconscious and into soul levels. Things can happen a little bit more quickly, but it's deep and it's lasting. That's where I work with people. The other thing that I see is lots of people will say, I'm already so busy, like I don't have time for You to tell me that I've got to go have a bubble bath at night, or I got to go, meditate for an hour. Of course, that's wonderful if you can, and I'd love that. But really, we're starting with not adding another thing to your list, because your list is already so busy. Your head is already so filled. It's really about finding the ways to be quiet in your already busy day. And I
Yeah,
promise you, if you find those quiet moments, the thoughts will start to slow.
and that's what's interesting about it, because overwhelm, what do they say? There's some people who like always look busy, and then you can have somebody else that's doing the same exact things but look calm. And so really it's about how do you interpret what's going on outside of you, and how do you bring that into yourself? If I'm kind of, for like, there's the way I'm explaining it. I'm not sure if it makes sense, but right.
Right. You can go through life in a manner that's more calm, and you can still be doing the same amount of things. Or, like you said, you can go
Yeah.
in that overwhelm where you're constantly thinking about the next thing that you've got to do. So, what happens is you're not actually really effective in that moment. When your mind is always going about all the rest of the things you got to do in the day, the thing that you're working on right now, or the person you're spending the time with, you're not being very effective. Whereas if somebody has learned to calm their mind, they're still doing all the things, but they're effective. So it's not taking them as long to get things done. The things that they're doing are being done better. The relationships they're having are deeper because they're there in that moment with them. It just impacts everything when you can just bring yourself to that quiet spot to be right here in this moment with whatever you're doing.
It kind of reminds me, my husband is that, like, always like boom, 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 boom. He's doing everything so fast that he'll drop something and he'll just keep moving, kind of thing. I'm
Right.
like, okay, but that's just how he operates. And I have, it's like I've accepted that I don't have any control over that. But I used to call him the Tasmanian devil. Remember that character,
Yeah.
that cartoon character? He'd spin around, and then he'd stop, he'd look, and then he'd spin. That's
And
my husband.
everything in his path would be thrown out of the way, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's not to anybody's detriment but his own. It's like
Yeah.
he doesn't hurt anybody, which is good. But within himself, there's always that like I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. And
Yeah.
it's interesting how how I've learned to it, because my childhood, like, let's talk about your childhood for just a moment here. Because in my childhood there was chaos in my household. My dad was a very volatile, abusive, alcoholic. Chaos whenever my dad was around. And so when I met my husband many years later, I'm 25 years old, I meet him, and then he's like boom, 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 right? And so I had this anxiety about the way he was. I love him dearly, but he has this side of him that it just like would bring me back to my childhood.
Right.
And so one day, I remember this. I just like sat here, and he was doing his thing, whatever. And I was looking at him like, I don't need to hold that. Like, that's not my anxiety. That's his. I don't need to hold on to it. And so I just let it go in that moment. So now when he's like that, I'm just like, whatever, he's doing his thing. I'll just keep doing my thing. Boy, that was tremendous.
It's a huge awareness, especially with people that are, have that overwhelmed, women, especially, where we feel like we've got to take care of everything. And that awareness that, well, that's not actually my anxiety. It's not my thing. So I don't have to take it on. And there's this great phrase that one of my mentors told me, and I tell everybody: we can care without carrying.
That's good.
Right? Because so often we take that on, and it's so important, especially when you think of it from a spiritual sense. Often the caregivers, those types of women are also empaths. And so they can really feel the feelings of everyone around
Yeah.
them. And sometimes it's hard to establish what's yours and what's not. And so really that awareness is life changing when you can just say, is this mine? No, I don't think so. Okay, I'm just going to let that go. I'm just going to keep what's mine.
It's mine. It's mine.
Right? This is mine. This is not mine. You take it. I care about you, and I'm not carrying it for you. I'm just going to
Hmm.
stay here steady and support you.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, just having that, just like you mentioned, that awareness piece right there was that, wow, I was taking on his energy. Now, I don't know what he's experiencing as far as his energy goes, but the energy that I was feeling that was being emitted from him to
Right.
me. And then I was like, I don't have to, I don't have to adopt his energy. I could just let this go. I mean, that was huge. And and that was about 5 years ago. And I'm still
Right.
today, I don't adopt that energy, that nervous energy, that anxiety energy from other people. And I'm just very calm. And it may feel like or seem like that I don't care, but that's not the case at all. I just have realized where I am in my life that I no longer want to adopt those types of energies from other people. And so I'll actually remove myself from situations if I feel myself starting to take it on. I'll just walk away, like disappear into the night.
I mean, it is a great awareness, and you think about for those of us that have children that have really taken on that role of being responsible for everything, and it's exactly the same thing you're talking about, Linda, in that you can care without carrying, and we often take on these false responsibilities that are not ours, and honestly, we're not helping. So we take your example of your husband. If you decide that you want to try and help him with this, but he doesn't want to change it, you take that responsibility away from him to be able to learn to deal with it because you're always taking care of it. The same thing kind of happens with our kids, can happen with our partners, at work, that we feel like we've got to make sure everybody's okay. Yet, in trying to make sure everybody's okay all the time, we're taking away their lessons that they need to learn, their journey of being able to take care of themselves, learn how to take care of themselves or not. But we rob them of that sometimes when we try so hard to take on all of those things.
Yeah, and we can't fix others. They have to fix themselves. They have to, or get help. Like me, I needed help. I would never have seen all these different things about myself had I not, had help from somebody like my life coach. So
Right.
it is interesting how, how sometimes we'll take it on because we think by us taking it on that they won't have that burden to carry. Like you mentioned, right? You say you can
Right.
care without carrying. I really love that. I think that's so great.
Isn't it
So
wonderful? Yeah.
so yeah, we're talking right now to Lesley Evans, and you can find her at riseofthephoenix.org. That's riseofthephoenix.org. And Lesley, you're one of the authors in this book, The Other Side of Divorce: Breakups That Lead to Breakthroughs. Your chapter in that book is titled Rising Phoenix. And you can get a copy of this book by going to actiontakerspublishing.com/divorce. While you're over there, there are free gifts from some of our authors. So go cash in on those free gifts. Again, that's actiontakerspublishing.com/divorce. Why don't you talk a little bit about your chapter, The Rising Phoenix?
Yes, absolutely. When Marty came to me about being an author in the book, I felt both on sort of this conscious and this spiritual level that this was a really important book. This isn't like a lot of the books that are how to get through divorce and the things that you need to take. This is really about understanding that although this is really difficult and this really sucks sometimes, that on the other side of it, there's hope that you can build your life even better than you had it before. And so when she approached me, I said, absolutely, I want to be part of this. This is important to get out there. And so I wanted my chapter to reflect that it was tough. I was divorced after 21 years,
Mm.
three beautiful girls, and it was not an easy decision. Yet it was one that was really, really important to make, not only for me, but for my kids. And in making that choice for me, it opened so many other doors, so much growth, transformation. And here I am. I used to work in the public system as a nurse, overworked, and now I'm working at home. I'm helping, I'm helping women to transform and understand their worth and to be the best that they can be. And so I just wanted to be a beacon of light and hope for those women that yes, it does get better. And yes, you can create the life you truly want.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. Yeah. You can get your copy of the book by going to actiontakerspublishing.com/divorce. What a true statement. There is goodness on the other side, but, we're not saying we're proponents of divorce, of course, but it's like, if you have gone through a divorce, or if you are going through divorce, that there can be, something better on the other side. I'm a testament to that. You're a testament to that. All the authors in the book are testaments to that. And so really getting this book, if you're going through divorce, you're thinking of going through divorce, or you've gone through divorce and you're having a hard time, definitely pick up the book, read those chapters, be inspired, be motivated to, change something in your life that'll make it a better life. So with Rise of the Phoenix, we go to your website, riseofthephoenix.org. What are we going to find when we head on over there?
Well, you'll find a little bit about me and the programs that I offer. If you'd like to just come and chat with me, if you're interested in seeing what I can offer, because, Linda, we talked about this. The things that I offer are kind of quick. It's not 10 years worth of coaching, or, I want you to not depend on me anymore. And so you'll find a spot where you can book a free half an hour with me just to talk about what's going on, what's impacting you, and some steps that you can take to move forward. And then we can decide whether it's a good fit for us to work together to keep moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, it's so important to really check in with yourself. And am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling full of anxiety? You mentioned, you were a nurse, for years, and that can be a very stressful position. But what can you do to move to the calm in that position? Especially if, I got into nursing because I wanted to help people, right? And if you're not helping yourself, though, you're not able to help them as well. So reaching out to Lesley to find out how she might be able to help you would be definitely to your advantage. Lesley, I'm going to wrap up the interview, but I want to know, what's one last thing that you would like to say to our audience?
Oh, okay. So here's what I'm going to say. You're worthy. You are worthy right here, right now. You don't have to give more. You don't have to be more. You don't have to have more. You don't have to do more. You're worthy right here in this moment of living the life that you truly want, to be truly happy every day and have lots of fun and joy. You're worthy of it. So, take the steps. Take the steps. Even if it's just one step at a time, you're worthy.
You are worthy. Thank you. That's a great message for sure. And you are worthy. Like she said, take that step, just one step at a time. Maybe that first step is to go to riseofthephoenix.org, go to Lesley's website, check her out, you get on a call with her, and maybe that is your step of the day. That's it. One thing at a time. That's all you need to do. If you think about it, I did a post on this just the other day. One step a day is 365 by the end of the year. So you think about just one step at a time is what gets us to move forward and gets us to have progress in our lives. So go out there. You are worthy. Go out there and make a difference in your life, which will ripple effect to other people's lives as well. Thanks, Lesley, so much for being here. Truly appreciate you for the work that you do. And thank you for being in this book and sharing your story. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Linda, for having me.
Now let's hear from one of our authors, Amy, her experience working with Action Takers Publishing. We hope to see you in one of our books. Go to actiontakerspublishing.com, check it out, and see what we have to offer. Thanks, Lesley.
You took the overwhelm out of the whole entire process. You said you set the guidelines, you said how many words to have, And it's like once I sat down and started typing, it just all came out so quickly and so easily. And I loved it. And I had fear to write. And I know about that. I know about that blockage within myself, but it just was so amazing how easy the process was working with Action Takers Publishing.